But they are aware. I'm not sure that they have done anything.
No, because of course nobody's above the law, but there's often the tendency of people to think that because of ABC to be difficult to touch me.
Yeah.
Now we know that if you do ABC, it's easy or it will not be out of place to be removed, and that's good for democracy.
Yeah, but you see, you don't have to.
That's accountability.
Yes. So with people with offices like that, if it is say that you prosecute Jim Mensah, I don't know the law position. Maybe the review committee have to look at that. You must look at Jim Mensah or Charlotte Osei separate from the office. You understand? Because what is happening to Chief Justice, her person is an individual, okay, occupy an office. For me, the implication is for the office. You can have an aim at the individual. She's not above the law, okay? So why don't we find a place
or
a system?
Who does the thing? And so
no, but I'm saying that, that notwithstanding, she is independent of the office. Okay, the office transcends her, and what is consequential for our democracy is the office, not the person. Okay, so maybe our constitution should figure out a way to deal with the person, so that our democracy is not troubled unnecessarily in seeking to deal with the person's own misdemeanor and conduct that does not affect. So let's say the Chief Justice or Jim Mensah conspired, or Charlotte Osei conspired demonstrably, okay, to rig election in a certain direction, using the mandate of the office, okay, to achieve a certain end, which is itself injurious to democracy. Then you can deal with it in that manner. But then if there are matters to do with personal decisions and things that are done that within the domain of the law can be addressed as a citizen of this country first, not the Chief Justice, then the Constitution, maybe the Kwesi Prempeh's committee, review committee, should look at something like that to say that let's begin to deal with the individuals independent of the office, so that she's a citizen first. If they commit acts that are offensive to the law, then we deal with them according to that law. But to have the design that by virtue of any commission or omission by that person in that office, we go and remove that, you are touching our democracy. Which is not to be touched willingly.
This will not be the first time a matter like this has arisen in respect of someone occupying an independent constitutional body. We saw the case of Vivian Loretta Lamte, former boss of Shraj. She was removed in 2015. Right. Okay. I'm not sure we had that's a constitutional.
But that's why we must. That's why we must have the conversation now.
So it wasn't out of place to have her removed. In fact, Richard Nyama and Anodompre were the guys who petitioned.
No problem.
The process went through and she was removed.
No problem. But I'm just saying
someone petitioned, is it Maxwell Opoku-Agyeman or somebody petitioned for Charlotte Osei to be removed. The process went to its logical conclusion. She was found liable or guilty or liable. She was removed. Why should Chief Justice Tokonus be very different?
See,
is it because
be very different?
Is it because the MPP feels connected to her in a particular way?
I'm not even arguing politics.
No, because all the voices we have heard mainly are from your caucus or are from your side.
No problem, but I have made a case. I've made a case for democracy.
And the same case for democracy could have been made years before.
Yes.
But you see, those cases were not made. And so it taints the motive. It taints the reason why you are making this argument today. In fact, the removal of Chief Justice Charlotte Osei, many people thought was even more consequential for our democracy because of the very delicate and sensitive role of the EC boss. But that went on smoothly. Nobody came to say anything.
But you know, what I know, I don't want to justify anything. You understand?
But will you say upon hindsight the removal of Charlotte Osei was wrong? Will you say that?
Well, based on the argument I am making, to say that you can find a way to deal with the person if it was a matter of procurement, which were the issues, which I understand originated from the commission itself. So their matter was internal. It wasn't orchestrated from the petitioners, were largely internal, right? So that they had a dispute, this person thinks that person and all of that. So they well up the petition that way. But even that, you should find a way to deal with the individual outside of the office, because the office is so sacred, okay? It's so sacred. So that we should not have the comfort of saying that because she is the EC person, because she is the Chief Justice, and she has gone against the law, so let's remove her. That is not good for the stability of democracy, because now the reasons you are giving, citing petitions made by people from the MPP, people from here, it justifies that this one cannot be different. So the issue becomes political rather than reasonably sustaining our democracy.
But if the issues raised by the politicians, if the issues raised by the politicians are legitimate issues, doesn't matter who raises it.
It doesn't matter. But the point is that should we continue that way? Because ultimately, the very thing that allows us the opportunity to make that petition is the very thing that is being destroyed by allowing that petition. You get me? So should we carry on? And very soon somebody would set that aside, create a new standard of saying that instead of going through the process which takes too long, just yank it off the place. Then
that would be against the law.
That would be against the law. That would be against the law. But you said that the last time somebody tried it, it was too long, and because we think that this is so and so, you never know what.
But the argument, the
I'm
law
just
is
saying that.
I'm
just saying that. I'm just saying that you don't know what crazy people would succeed us, or what good angels would succeed us. So you do things according to a certain foreseeable future that people don't abuse what we do today as justification for their own action.
So
people can always stretch the issue.
If I'm hearing you, no matter what the issues are, because we do not know the issues, maybe you know, I don't know. No matter what the issues are, if I'm hearing you right, you want the president tomorrow to tell us that no prima facie case has been made, and that that's fine, we move on, the office is preserved, democracy is preserved, and we move on, irrespective of what the allegations are.
No, not exactly that. Two things I'm saying. That perhaps the Constitutional Review Committee should find a way in their amendment.
Yeah, but that's for the future.
I'm coming, yes. So in their amendment propositions to see that in these offices, we find a way to deal with the individuals independent of the office. So as a citizen, they can be sued for their conduct that are not acceptable and offensive to the law. And they can continue in that office insofar as it is not anything treasonable. They can be dealt with and come back to their office so that we don't disturb the office necessarily. And two, the threshold for establishing any prima facie, because really what you're saying is that if there is any crime punishable that she has committed in court, right, she may have committed upon investigating or
stated misbehavior.
Yes. If Council of State finds anything that is punishable against the law, right? Punishable. Like that if I do, I'll be punished for her as a citizen. If she does that, it's equal to removing her from the office. I'm saying that is too excessive, because as an individual, okay, as a citizen, if it goes against the law, punish her. But don't let it be a punishment of our democracy. You can do that if the threshold is such that it's unforgivable. The evidence must be such that this one, it bothers
the determination on the evidence. Who makes the determination on the evidence?
I'm saying that we, the citizens, should have a say in that matter.
Really?
Yes, of course. It shouldn't just be to Council of State, because I'm saying that this democracy belongs to we, the people.
Yes, but
the people who are managing it on our behalf.
We put it to an election, or we take it to our representatives in Parliament.
We can do that.
To our representatives.
We can do it in Parliament. Yes, of course. That's the appropriate, more or less, reasonably reflective.
And wouldn't that be more political because of the kind of parliament we have?
I don't know. But then at that point,
so for example, this case in point, you take it to this parliament, with almost two-thirds of NDC people.
Yeah.
That would have been a no-brainer.
But I can tell you that if the parliamentarians in Parliament are minded and are really,
they will do the right thing.
Yeah, are really there to represent their constituents,
they will do the right
they will
thing.
take a position that by and large will be contrary to any whipped position.
No, but we've seen parliamentarians.
I agree. I'm just saying that I'm just appealing to the better angels in all of us.
Their constituents were against it, but we found a way of pushing it through.
No, I am just saying.
So it's a similar, the same parliament we have.
Yeah, but you know, Salom, then that will be a higher threshold. It won't just be as simple as Council of State finding a case against the Chief Justice and then come to the President, forms a committee, then yank it off. Okay, it would have been an additional layer, which then will make you think about the evidence before you actually take that move, because you must be really convinced. And even the Constitution really ought to be amended to where the President himself must convince himself that there is something here to pursue,
I see.
Such that it will be a reflection of the country. See, this argument should not be done in a vacuum right now as we're doing, which he should be able to tell you that because of this, because of that, I think that the removal is
you are against justified. The secret nature of
the evidence is not compelling.
No, we know the evidence.
But I'm just saying, you cannot say anything she has done now, for which reason. She should go into the process.
Because I don't know.
But she's a chief justice of the country. You're a lawyer. So what has he done? I'm just saying,
so
no.
For example, some could be administrative. If, for example, they say there are procurement issues, as a lawyer, I may not necessarily know of those. You get me? If somebody had a case.
We have procurement issues all the time. The Public Accounts Committee, hold on one second.
Yes.
The Public Account Committee finds, procurement issues, administrative errors, and sort of
But in this case, it's Chief Justice, the threshold is higher.
I'm just saying, no problem. But you see, she's just an officer as everybody else. I'm saying that, and first of all, a citizen. So when people commit this crime, are they removed from office or they are made to
so that's a problem you're identifying with
I'm
the
just
law.
saying that, yes.
But also the law is changed, that's what it is.
Yes, but I'm saying that even now in this moment, especially when we are reviewing the Constitution, we should take a serious view of the matter. Because for the Charlotte, same matter that you have cited, okay?
So it's also procurement.
Yes, and the previous other matters that you have cited, we are gradually creating a precedent that will lead to doing this thing willy-nilly without necessarily referencing what implication it would have for the very democracy that is allowing us to be able to petition. Because in the military regime, you're not going to be petitioning anybody about anything. You understand? In a democracy, you can do that. So we should be mindful that in exercising that right, we don't undermine the same democracy that allows us. And I'm saying, if you attack the judiciary in the manner that you are doing,
but who is attacking the judiciary? Just individuals have petitioned.
So that's why I said that the usage of that is not, there's no pun intended in that to say it's Bahama or anybody. I'm just saying that the happening of that event is an attack on the judiciary, okay? And if that is seen to be normalizing in our country, then you are creating a certain precedent where everything is fair.
I see.
And that our democracy will then be troubled as a result.
I see. Musa Dankwa is there. Musa Dankwa has done some work on this. I'll hear from Dr. Kwapo and I'll come to you, Musa. So, Doc, of course, I know you wanted to say something, but is there anything that can be done to stop the process? Of course, the MPP minority called on traditional authorities and religious leaders to step in to stop the president from possibly getting a prima facie case established against the lady and possibly suspending her, because the law says may suspend. A prima facie case may be made out against her, but she may not even be suspended, but we don't know. Is there any way we can get this done legally?
I don't know how, so let me say this. The president's role in receiving these petitions, right? Sometimes I've also asked myself, is the president simply a conveyor belt, right? He or she receives the petition and therefore the article is triggered, you immediately start the consultations with the Council of State. Or is it permissible for the president to act as a gatekeeper, right? Look at the petition and say, you know what? I can't trigger. The law is not very clear on that. So it becomes very challenging for...
In the case of Charlotte, say we're made to believe that the president was just
a conveyor belt,
so
right?
It's the same interpretation.
It's the same precedent being followed over here. At this stage, though, without that clarity, you would have to let the process go on. I mean, one of the cures to this, though, is transparency. I mean, if the president were to come out tomorrow and say, you know what, upon even other further consultations with the Council of State, I've decided this process can move on, right? He can't just say that and it ends there, right? You would have to let the citizens know exactly the basis upon which you are making that decision. It's the same reason I'm also saying you have to give the citizens something, even if it's not the full petition, right? Citizens have to know exactly the stated misbehavior of the Chief Justice, which has triggered 1466. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah, but other than that, we are all engaged in, there could be a case, there could not be a case. Richard talked about protecting the sanctity of the office. I agree, protecting democracy, I agree. But sometimes too, in order to protect the sanctity of an office and protect democracy, even the very little infractions that can cumulatively undermine democracy or undermine the sanctity of the office cannot go, cannot go unpunished. So that, for me, is also part of the dilemma that we are dealing with, that we have to find a way to resolve it in such a way that we are not setting, quote unquote, a bad precedent, but we are also setting a standard that says the little compromises of our democracy and the sanctity of certain offices will not be tolerated. The last thing I want to add is, with these processes, it also doesn't help that sometimes some of our partisans have made comments that tend to then betray even the best intentions of the process and the system. So if you think about the Ms. Charlotte Osei example, I mean, in the lead up to 2016, there was, comments made in the public space saying that, look, if we come into power, we would remove her, we would bring in a new EC, things like that. Some of those things make it, you sort of prejudice even any good process after that. You've seen some of those things with Ms. Jean Menser as well. So today, if a process is triggered to remove her and some of her deputies from office, you cannot help but discard some of the previous comments that have been made, even if we are following the process. Look at the judiciary, for example. I mean, we've heard rhetoric in the public space about unanimous FC and this and that. So even if this is a legitimate process, you cannot discount some of these previously made comments that forces people to begin to second guess whether this is truly about protecting the democracy and the sanctity of the office, or if it is also not lingered or littered with certain political motives as well. And the way, again, you solve that is to make the process as transparent as possible. Like I said, the law doesn't say that, tell us who petitioned and what is in the petition. But I think it would be a good practice to at least give the citizens a sense of why 146 was triggered. So that for me as a citizen, ultimately, if you come back to me and you say the Chief Justice must suffer the highest form of punishment of stated misbehavior, I can trust that there was a solid basis for doing that.
I see. This is a big issue on 97.3 City FM, also live on ChannelOne television and also on all our social media platforms. You can join the discussion via our WhatsApp line, which is displayed on your screen. We'll be happy to hear from you. My guest this morning, Richard Ahiangba, Director of Communications of the NPP, Dr. John Osei-Kwapong, political scientist and a fellow at the CDD, Musa Dankwa, who is a pollster and executive director of the Global Info Analytics. We're still awaiting Inu Safuseni to join the discussion. We're hopeful that he will join us soon. Let me go back to Musa Dankwa. So Musa, you have done some work in this respect. And your conclusion, I mean, the headline from that is that 52% of Ghanaians are in support of attempt to remove the CJ. What can you tell us about this? Does it stem from the questioning, or, I mean, what can you tell us about this?
Look, as the panelists have mentioned, we don't have the prima facie evidence against the Chief Justice. There's nothing in the public domain officially to say that this is a crime. So we said, or we asked voters whether they support the process to remove her, even though we have not seen any evidence of impropriety against her. We wanted to see people who would take a stance without seeing any evidence. Now, on that score, you would realize that 52% of people we sampled were saying that, yes, they support the process to remove her. We didn't ask them whether it is the right or wrong thing to do. We just asked them about the process. And 52% are saying that, yes, they support the process. 20% said, no, they didn't support the process. But 18% said they were neutral. And another 10% didn't have an opinion. Then, for those who did not support the first question, and were neutral or they have an opinion, we follow it up with a secondary question to say that if there is evidence of impropriety against the Chief Justice, would you support the process to remove her? In that instance, 30% of those who were initially saying no, or they were neutral, or they have an opinion, are now saying yes, they will support the process if she is found to have broken the law. But 35% are still saying no, they won't support the process. And 19% said they are still neutral. And then 16% didn't have an opinion. Now, overall, if you analyze this further, you would realize that for those who would support her removal, if there is evidence against her, will now rise to 65%. And those who said no, whether there is evidence or not, we won't change our mind, she must stay, now it is 17%. Those who are neutral will be 9%. And those who have no opinion in that instance are 8%. So this is a legal process. It should be based on evidence. And if there's evidence, the public is saying that she must go.
I see. I see that 35% of those who said they did not support her removal, and your question drilled down further to ask if there was evidence that she had broken the law, should she go or not? 35% of those said she shouldn't go. What do you make of this? Did you drill down further to understand why 35% of the people said she shouldn't go, even though she's done some, she might have done something wrong?
No, this is a close-ended survey. We don't ask you the reasons why, because we don't have that level of time at that point in time. So, but it's interesting to look at the party affiliation of people who want her go.
Exactly, yeah.
And there's people who want her stay. Now, if you look at the data we have now, for those who are, let me look at the data quickly. It is kind of skewed in a partisan way, slightly, because it's taking a political angle. For those who are MPP, 16% without evidence wanted to go. 16% without evidence wanted to go. 46% said no, she shouldn't go. 26% are neutral, who are MPP neutral, and 13% have no opinion. So less than half of MPP sympathizers want her to stay. Less than half. When you come to NDC, those who wanted to go, it is 83%, which is really extremely partisan on their side. 3% wanted to stay, 7% did not have an opinion, and another 7% were neutral. Now, when it comes to the floating voters, which for me is the yardstick to see impartiality, 46% of floating voters want her to go. 13% want her to stay. 26% were neutral, and 15% did not have an opinion. So if you doubt the NDC and NPP, measure the perception through the eyes of the floating voters.
I see. That's interesting. But of course, this is a survey. You are speaking the minds of the people. But I know you've been doing this job for quite some time. And based on what you've seen over the years, I'm sure you are also able to form opinions and analyze the figures you have. Why do you think 52% of Ghanaians want her out?
I'll also respond to you using data, because I don't want to speak my opinion and make inferences. In 2023, the Supreme Court, by voters, majority, almost 60%, did not trust the Supreme Court. They had low confidence in the Supreme Court in 2023, according to the polls. In the recent poll we also did, you would notice that the Supreme Court is now perceived to be the third most corrupt public institution in Ghana today. The Supreme Court. Third most corrupt public institution. So if you add one and one together, perceived to be least confidence from voters most corrupt, number 3, people tend to add the dot and say that the person who may be leading the call, any reason to get her out, they may think that it is justified. I think the perception they've given us in terms of her removal may have been shaped by these two public opinions.
I see. Very interesting and interesting times ahead. Interesting times ahead, really. This is the big issue on 97.3 City FM. I guess just looking at the matter of the removal of the Chief Justice, this is within the 100 days of the administration. We're just wrapping up this, and then we'll go into another area which is of major concern, Galamsey. And my guest, Professor Sharif Khalid has joined us in the studio from the NDC. He's a policy advisor in the office of the Vice President. Prof, let me hear you briefly on all this talk about removal of the CJ. People think that as a independent constitutional body, we must be a bit cautious of how we proceed against that office. Removing her will set a very dangerous precedent, and so we must be very cautious. Not everything should be passed. What do you think about this generally?
Well, thank you very much, and happy to be here, and good morning to Richard, my good friend, and Prof. Okay, well, the precedence has been set a very long time ago, so I don't know why we are talking about precedents now.
We've not removed the CJ before.
Well, but we've removed someone closer to that, Charlotte Osei, right? Even if you look at her conditions of service and the stature of office, it's paired to that of a Court of Appeals judge. Right, so that has happened before. It's nothing new under the sun. And you see, certain conventions happen within public space, right? And when you compare this possibly to a 200-year or over 200-year constitution, such as that of the United Kingdom, a 200 or over 200-year unwritten constitution that thrives more on convention, right, than even constitutional articles, as we wish. When it pleases us, we activate certain articles and clauses within our laws, as it may. That tend to be the rule of man and the rule of the subjective individuals interpreting it rather than the rule of law. And that's a realm we found ourselves in this whole roller coaster of her removal. If I were her, based on the conventions and observations with what has been happening over the years, I would have honorably resigned and walked away.
Really?
Yes. I wouldn't even stay to ignite this drama.
On what basis? She feels she's done nothing wrong.
Well, it's not about doing something wrong, right? When you look at state functionality, we're talking about independence of government, whatsoever, among other issues. I've had a rare privilege. I think I ran into the judicial secretary, right, at an event, That was very cordial. I think the CJ was meant to attend that event. She couldn't turn up. But it'll interest you to note that this government has been very unique in the sense that there have been cordiality among some of these people. In time past, you see a certain level of hostility that is even thrown at them. None of this has happened. To this day, the base of the party, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, based on the precedents that has been set, the base of the party are still mentioning people that are still holding on to public office that they think should walk away. But in any case, who set this base? It is the introduction of the MPP into our body politic, having tasted power, asking people to proceed on leave, arresting Chachu Chikata in court, among other issues. And today, they turn around to say people's homes have been raided.
In church?
Yes. Where was Chachu Chikata arrested?
In court.
In church, yes. In church. Was that the right place to have arrest a public officer if you think there was something even untoward, if you're not trying to make a point in a statement? But today what has happened? An independent court has cleared him of all of those charges. A court was created in this country just to rule, name, and hang him.
Which court was created?
Oh, no court was created. Do you have a fast-track court?
It wasn't created for Chachito. It tried a lot of other matters.
No, but who triggered that? Or what case triggered that?
Not necessarily. It was to fast-track things because we all complained that the judiciary delays.
So, and you believe it's indeed fast-track?
No, but it did fast-track cases. It did fast-track cases.
Political cases or general cases. You are a lawyer. You are a practicing lawyer.
Yes, I'm not even sure if Chachu Chikate's case was even fast-tracked at all, because it started very early and it ended sometime in 2008.
Yeah, but I'm asking as a lawyer, do you see the essence of it?
Well, I mean,
in the kind of cases that went before it.
Civil cases.
I mean, let's not digress. Let's not digress to that. But I'm hinging on the point that all of these precedents were set up by the MPP, right? Asking people to proceed on leave, among other issues. Even as recent as few years ago, we all knew certain roles were civil service roles. They were roles of meritocracy. They were roles that you went through a promotional rank to get to. But in the ex-while administration, even to be headmaster of a second cycle institution became matter of politics. Where were we driving the country to? And when you do some of these things, it becomes very difficult to bring the nation back to a status quo.
So, what, I mean, you said you were resetting the country.
Yeah.
Resetting the country means that perhaps it will be a clean break from the past.
Yes.
Chart a new course.
Yes.
So why do you chart a new course, but base the new course you're charting on the old things you said were not good, for which we gave you the money?
And that's exactly what we're doing. If it was under a certain regime, you wouldn't have had the boss of the Mineral Commission still at post. If it was under a certain regime, you wouldn't have had the boss of the Ghana airport still at post, among other institutions.
Maybe it's just a matter of time.
Which matter of time?
We may wake up tomorrow to hear that they are no more there.
But the fact that they are still there should tell you something and should be up for praise. So that's what I want you to understand, which is part of the reset process.
Yes,
so my fundamental point, my fundamental point is, we all saw what happened to Charlotte Osei. No justice was done. I mean, you have an idea of someone who still has a number of years ahead of you in your career, right, among the best and brightest of the country, put in a role to be removed in such a manner under a certain administration, then you expect. But why is it that we are not a similar role, if there's nothing untoward, where you'd realize that it's not witch hunting, but responding to a particular petition? A similar role is the NCCE boss, who we all know on social media, have been privy to her postings and barrage of attacks of the Mahama administration. No one has gone after her. She's still at post, attending events alongside the presidents and leading members of this administration. Why is no one going after her?
Kathleen Addy.
Yes. And on record, anyone who's on social media still have evidence, even though she has deactivated her account, has evidence of what she used to do. And her role, by function, right, and service or conditions of service, is pegged at that of a Court of Appeals judge.
So the point you're making
is that the government is
not going after.
No, they're not going after the Chief Justice, not at all. If there's anyone to go after, giving examples of people who attacked the government even on social media that were not. But were you happy with most of the cases that went, to the extent that the public could even predict the voting pattern of where events would take? What this does is that it even erodes.
But it's not a Chief Justice. Is it a Chief Justice?
No, who empanels?
No, but
who empanels?
No, but
nobody's. I'm not saying it. I'm just asking for a process.
Are you saying
it's an image of the judiciary that we are discussing?
Duty.
And who is the head of the? Who is
the Chief Justice? But are you saying that the Chief Justice will say, okay, this matter has come, NDC is involved, MPP is involved, so Justice 1, 2, 3, 4, you guys think along a certain line, so go and decide the matter.
Listen to me carefully.
The Justices have risen to that position.
No, but the point is,
by virtue of the work they've done in the past and their fidelity to the law. They look at the matters and they deal with it in respect of the law.
For me, I think that is something, again, we need to relook at. Maybe after she's gone. We possibly really need
after she's gone.
Yeah, we really need to.
Why would she go?
I don't know. It depends. Let the petition speak.
Yes, so why do you say after she's gone?
Well, I mean, you see, I belong to a school of thought, and I'm not going to shy away from it. Given what has happened to Charlotte Osei, right, and what the base has received, for justice to be done and a real recalibration and reset to be done, right, the system ought to see some justice being done.
And that justice being done is for the CJ to leave?
No. It's her case being looked at dispassionately to evidence whether she's living or not.
And that would be fair. That's what we are all calling.
That's what we are all calling.
That's what we are calling for. That it should be fair.
Yes, but when I say after she's gone, it must not necessarily mean that after the petition issue asks her to go, she may retire on it whatsoever. But what I'm simply saying is that we need to relook at it such that politics does not become a part of it. You have maybe, senior officers or senior judges that rise through the ranks, get there, the position is being advertised, right? Then it's determined as to who is best qualified amongst them to have it. And that's where we could start to talk about meritocracy among other issues.
I see.
But you see, where I was talking about or speaking to conventions, in many jurisdictions, I'm making comparison to the UK unwritten constitution, where you even have conventions taking over constitutionally enshrined duties or mandates or certain rights to be done. You realize that as a matter of convention, when a new government is coming in, certain key people know that, look, I just need to walk away. Right? One, as a matter of national security. Two, as a fact that your ideologies does not even reflect to the government of the day. Right? Three, as a fact that you may not be able to function effectively within that space. And I think it's about time. When Martin Amidu realized that he couldn't function effectively as an OSP, what did he do? He did the honorable thing by resigning.
I see.
Right? It is, so, but I don't know why we play ostrich over all of this. This same government that brought Kisi Ajabin as special prosecutor into office tried to hound him out of office. Did they not go after him? Was a petition not set in motion, among other issues? So why are they having a peculiar issue with this?
Very well.
And interestingly, for me, you look at the Apex Court and the Office of Chief Justice, a very important one. It's just not a local office. Tying it to the functionality and our attachment to the Commonwealth, it is an international office. So when you start or begin to do her response, her premature response, for me.
In terms of what?
Well, in terms
asking
of,
for the petition?
Yeah, asking for the petition.
No, but that was fair.
Why did Charlotte say not ask for a petition?
Yes, but
What happened when she asked for it?
No, but so if it was wrong.
Right? And I found the tone of the letter.
Yeah, but
I found the tone quite disrespectful in some of the issues, as though she was educating people about the law. Like the people who set the motion, and the president has a legal team surrounding him, referring to the Council of State among other issues. We're not in tune, or we're not abreast of the issues she's talking about.
Wisdom is not in one man's head. It doesn't matter. She's Chief Justice. If she feels that she had a right,
let's stop playing games with these
she had a
things.
right to the petition.
I'm not saying she doesn't have.
She has to be. She has
well,
to
did
ask
Charlotte
for it.
not request it?
No, but the fact that Charlotte was not given,
yes,
doesn't mean that it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, so let us, go back to history
a lot of what
and make the real comparison to it.
And in fact, I think Richard is considered to some extent that the way the Charlotte matter was handled was not proper. And and we should depart from that.
For the first time, I think
Richard
Richard and I may agree on this.
But let's make progress.
We're making progress.
We're
making progress. But you look at the court of public opinion, not even what is happening or whether it's gone to the Council of State, among other issues, right? But what does the court of public opinion feel about her being Chief Justice? If she sits in her study this Easter Saturday, right, reflecting over her own stewardship and listening to the bass and echoes of voices.
The base of what? Of the NDC?
The government.
The base of the government?
Right? No, I'm coming. The base of the government and the nation, right? And reflecting over her own stewardship. She should ask herself an internal, fundamental question. Would it be worth it?
Does she want to remain?
Would it be in the interest of the nation? No, would it be in the interest of the nation?
Fidelity with the
I'm coming in. No. Would it be in the interest of the nation if I continued? That is for her to answer.
Very well. Very well. No. So many people have said that the way we appoint Chief Justices is not the way to go. I mean, in concluding this matter, I've spent quite some time on this. And of course, because of its sheer importance. In concluding, should we relook at how we appoint Chief Justices? Should we just say that if the position becomes vacant, the senior-most judge on the Supreme Court bench takes the place? That should have its demerits for sure. But in a way in our quest to depoliticize the appointment, because by all means, a president will have to appoint, and nobody will appoint his or her enemy or somebody who doesn't think alike with him into a role. What can we do? Do we say that the senior-most person, irrespective of who he is or what his views are, should become the CJ? What should we do?
I mean, you can make some tweaks to the appointment process, but I think what is causing the answers, even if you change the appointment process, you would still have to fix the removal process as well.
A lot of the issues about the removal process, I mean, whether we like it or not, may be political, because a certain group of people think that this person has been unfair to us, treated us unfairly, even in matters of the law. And because she doesn't see things from our point of view. and because that person was appointed by person A of this party. So if we take out that power, or we take that power from the appointer, so that the appointer doesn't have the discretion to choose. Maybe we are 3 or 4 around this table. Maybe you are the Chief Justice, he's the senior most person after you, follows in that order. So when you leave, retirement or whatever, when you leave, it's not up for discussion. We know who the next senior most person is. Or of course, we can say, okay, if the next senior most person has at least 2 years left on the person's record, the person takes over. If it's less than 2 years, it comes to the next person. So that the appointer doesn't have the discretion to choose somebody he likes or she likes, and that may so that we don't see these accusations or allegations about the person favoring a particular party because he or she was appointed by this person coming up again.
I mean, there's some legitimacy to that. My point, though, is when you've done that, does it take away from people still feeling aggrieved about decisions that emanate from the institution, right? That will that cure that I disagree with the court, and because I disagree with the court, something must be done about the persons on the court with whom I disagree with. The only way you can cure that mischief is if you also change the removal process and hand it over to the process that allows persons to become Chief Justice. But I think for me, my concluding comments on this is the judiciary is also finding itself in a very difficult, as an institution, is not enjoying the best of times. And what I mean by that is, if you look at assessments of Ghana's judiciary from the Mo Ibrahim Foundation's Index of African Governance, you see in quite a number of areas deteriorating assessments of the judiciary. If you look at Afrobarometer on questions of trust, perceptions of corruption, the judiciary is not enjoying the best of times. I was of the opinion that this leading justice initiative that has been launched by the Chief Justice, I think in 2023, as a reform effort.
2024.
Right, as a reform effort to try and strengthen the judiciary and address some of these issues, was a good faith effort to, restore some of that lost trust and confidence in some of these issues emanating from the judiciary. But again, for me, ultimately, whatever happens or doesn't happen, I just hope that citizens would be given a fair idea of the basis upon which a particular sanction is being placed on the chief justice. And if there's wrongdoing, then of course independent doesn't mean unaccountable. And so you would have to make sure that the rules of accountability also applies.
Richard, how should we do this to ensure, is there any way the appointment of the CJ could be done so that we don't see this in the future?
So our processes are modeled after, largely after the UK and the US. And in the US, the Chief Justice appointed just like we're doing here. There is nothing entirely wrong with that. If amendment can be brought to change it, the proposals to have them go in that manner, seniority and all that, if we can have a consensus, or the judiciary itself can have a consensus on that, is good. We can have a system, just like people are talking about the IGP and all of that. The institution itself be self-sustaining and self-promoting in a manner that they can elect who heads it. If we can do that in this period of amendment, I think that would be useful. So then that way we take it away from the politicians. And everything else that I've been shying away from talking about is just what my brother has brought front and center. The danger that this effort presents is what my brother has just committed. It's manifest in everything he's saying. That he says that he belongs to a school of thought. Now, when you say you belong to a school of thought, it's specific. It's an ideology. It's a way of thinking. Which way of thinking is that Chief Justice must go? Okay? Must go to pave the way for Jean Mensah to be removed, because that petition is sitting on His Excellency John Dramani Mahama's desk. I'll show you the publication on your own website. I think this was on the 27th of January. You published it, right? That petition, why hasn't it gone to the Chief Justice? Right? He's waiting for his own Chief Justice to come so they can prosecute that agenda. That is injurious to our democracy. And everything Khalid has said...
Are you agreeing to what he's saying?
No, there's a
you made your point. Nobody agreed, but you said
he's making very fundamental points.
There is a petition for the removal of Jean Mensah there. So, of course, we dealt with this earlier about why that petition is still there instead of...
Salom is okay. Khalid is a big man. You don't have to accommodate him. What he has said is what I'm responding to. The point is that he has confirmed, okay, everything that I'm afraid of. Everything that our good senior brother is afraid of. He says that this is a political vendetta.
He didn't say that.
No, but what he's saying is that he belongs to a school of thought. And he even went as far as to say that the government's base. No government has a base. What he meant to say... I'm coming. Power belongs to the people. No. I mean, he's speaking in a certain context. What he didn't want to say is that the NDC base, because no government in this country has a base. The base is the citizen. Why didn't he say the citizen? He said this government base. Hold on. This government base, which is a new terminology, okay, for citizenship, is what he's bringing. So he's saying that their base want to see some retribution. Which retribution is that because Charlotte Osei is removed, this Jean Mensah must be removed. But you cannot remove Jean Mensah because the reasons are flimsy, and this Chief Justice will not tolerate it in good conscience. So remove her, bring our Chief Justice, and deliver. That is, for me, the grand agenda. But I am not concerned about that. I am saying that our democracy is at stake. So for all intent and purposes, with all due respect, and for some reason, I have some very deep belief that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama means well for this country.
You do?
Absolutely, as an individual. But there are some hawks in their party, okay? And which hawks I should tell Khalid that they are in abundance in the MPP. You understand? In both political parties. So when you are seeing these kinds of things, what stops another person in MPP tomorrow and say, when they came, they removed the Chief Justice because they want to do this. So let's go ahead and remove this and remove this. That's where precedent comes in. That's where the destruction of our democracy takes center stage. That's what we must avoid.
But a precedent
there cannot
is
be
set.
The precedent. Yes, for the continuation of it, they can set a new precedent today to say that whatever they committed themselves to a certain reset, isn't it? Which reset is no longer a reset, is now
an upgrade.
An upgrade.
An upgrade of the past.
An upgrade of the past.
Really?
I mean, I don't know.
But you promised the upgrade, so they are doing that for you.
No. I'm just saying that they, in their own words, saying that they are going to reset, which presupposes that they are going to do something new. But then they have gone miles backwards to try and do this. The Charlotte Osei removal, I've told you, was not contrived in any way, shape, or form. These were petitions originating from within. But now, people have been positioning at vantage points.
The petition was actually by Maxwell.
Right, but I'm saying that the matters leading to that petition, the facts of the petition, were matters that were coming from within. Allegation and counter-allegation against themselves. So it wasn't the matters that came up where something that somebody contrived, was looking with a microscope to find what fault I can see against Chief Justice.
Case, you're sure people were looking with microscopes to see what
of course, because but
the three people, we don't even know them.
Who?
The three petitions, we don't even know the people.
Yeah.
So why are you concluding
that adds to the mystery of it?
Yeah, but that's how the law says it should be.
The mystery.
The law says that's how it should be. Everything about it should be in camera.
No, I don't have a problem against that. I'm just saying that if it is contrived, is it not happening in camera? It's happening in camera. And I'm saying that, answer that fundamental question. Why is it that a petition received before the removal of the CJ?
I don't have the answer. I don't.
But it's on your website.
Yeah, but I'm saying that I'm not disputing the presence or the existence of the petition.
Can you not wonder reasonably to say that why is that which precedes the Chief Justice is not being attended to? Okay, that can be dealt with now. The EC matter.
But I'm not sure there's a time limit to when a petition could be filed.
So the convenience.
I don't know. I have no answers.
But if you don't know, don't say it.
I have no answers.
If you don't know, don't say it. But what you are saying is to tell me that there's no priority. The president pick and choose at his pleasure. In other words,
Khalid is here.
He will ask for Khalid. You know what he's going to say. But I'm just saying that right now. Let's ask with all fairness to say that you receive a petition for the removal of the EC chair. That one, you are sitting on it. You have a CJ in place who can deal with that matter. You haven't proceeded with that. You are keeping that one.
You're not
until what time?
How the president should work and respond to petitions.
Richard, the president is working for us. Excuse me to say that. He's working for us. He's not there to do his bidding. I'm saying that if there's a petition and there's a basis to remove the EC, why is he holding on to that petition?
He's still investigating.
Very well.
No, he's not supposed to investigate.
No, you have to determine the
No. I'm just coming. Let me phrase this. The president has no business determining any case against anybody who wants the EC removed. It is the Chief Justice who determines that.
So you think
the president,
if in his wisdom he thinks
the law doesn't allow. No, he can't.
He can't do that.
Khalid, just wait. This is a matter of law. So the law says no.
I'm not saying he's doing that right in the open air. But definitely, as president, if you were president and such a petition came,
no,
would you just...
Yes, that's what he said.
That's what he said. But in your own wisdom,
no. But it's a conveyor belt.
Would you do that?
No, but it's a would you do that?
Yes, he will do that. He
currently would you do that?
Khalid,
be honest. Would you do that?
No, but that's what the law says I should do. So
but you see, when you go fixated on what the law says,
Khalid,
let's talk about conventions here. That runs democracy.
The law is the first protocol.
No. Read Article 146. Our Constitution. Yes. I know you know. But what is... All right. So please, it's not fair.
No, but you've been speaking for a while. He spoke for a few minutes.
Just 1 minute.
He's speaking for a while.
Khalid came, there was no interruption. My senior
was
there. So now that he's come. But the point, let me just conclude.
Because he comes with a contrary...
He doesn't come here to disrupt.
This one analyzes. He comes with a political view.
We're all analyzing before.
No, he comes with a political view which runs counter to yours.
No problem. I'm just saying that. Let me conclude. The point I'm making. No. The point I'm making is that the president is a conveyor belt. He received this petition way back to January. He has not allowed that to
January
be taken.
27.
Yes. He has not allowed that to be taken to a Chief Justice. The question is why?
Why? So the president will get him and we'll put that question to him.
So
wait, the president will answer that. Musa, your concluding thoughts on this?
I would have some 2 minutes after Musa.
You will. Musa, your concluding thoughts on this?
No, I have listened to the arguments by all sides, and as a pollster, it's very interesting to hear the arguments that have been made. But for me, I believe that there must be some reforms in the way we appoint the Chief Justice, especially in head removal. I don't think it should be left to few committee, what we call Congress in UK, to take that decision. I think it would have been better if that decision is referred back to Parliament. But the Parliament, the sovereign body that represents every Ghanaian, whether it is partisan or not, that is how Ghanaians have voted. So you can't take the partisan out of Parliament. If Ghanaians have put 184 NDC people in Parliament, that's how they want them to think. And I believe it had gone through the Parliament. The debate would have been much more open, transparent, argument and counter-argument. And then from there, they go to vote. And I believe that maybe going forward, we should be able to look at something like that and strengthen the way some of these people are moved. If their appointments is approved by Parliament, I think we should go to Parliament and get it.
I see, very well. Khalid, you have the final word on this. 1 minute.
I mean, if you look at this, I listened to the 2019 Reef Lectures by Lord Shamson. He's a Supreme Court judge, a retired Supreme Court judge. And before he started his lecture, he brought in a Greek mythological story where he talks about in the beginning where there was chaos, right? And you have the Agamemnon sacrificing the daughter as he was embarking on a voyage to Troy. And in revenge, the wife killed him. And in revenge, you had the son also murdering the mother. Then it took what? The gods of wisdom, Athena, to intervene by setting a social order for things to be done rightly. For me, here, President Mahama is the gods of Athena, the gods of wisdom, trying as part of the research agenda to put things in place or to put effective measures, not just for the CJ, to have sanity, meritocracy, and in Britain, again, or in England, what we call goats into the government of all the talents, where you have people that are not even hardline NDC or hardline MPP as part of the government, which is why I said you'd see certain interesting appointments coming into the fray. You still see certain people holding up to their offices. Can Richard sit here and say, as today he find it very convenient to dust up his constitution and bring into studio? Would he say, when that happened against Charlotte Essay, he was very happy to do same, to come and have all these constitutional codes? The reset starts within. So in Rose Party, when that was happening, what did he do to stop that? So I'm not saying
you are the one who said you were doing a reset.
Yes, I'm not saying. I'm not saying that this person is right or wrong. Much as I'm coming, I'm a part of the government, and I haven't even given government's position on this. But we cannot stampede the president by virtue of the fact that we say he has received X, Y, Z, so he should go ahead and do Y, Z.
Very well.
When do you determine receipt of a petition to a president?
When the office
right? No, I'm just saying, as far as these things are concerned. So if you have your own grapevine information and you are putting them before the public for discussion, that is quite problematic.
But it's been
right. But I'm coming in here to most of these issues. It is interesting to note. Yeah, I know. It is interesting to note that look, even if, let's say, within this government, right, we had a continuous process, like say, an NDC president leaves and a different NDC president comes in. Conventionally, certain roles or people still go home.
But the CJ... And
right, now I'm coming to that. It's just, let's not play ostrich and make comparisons that may not, as a matter of... Right? Some are even debriefed and made ambassadors when you have top-ranking military officers, among other issues. For continuity's sake, would have said, let them all continue because it's the same government. But this CJ issue, right, let's be scientific about it. The public in and of itself. You look at all the polls. All the polls.
Which poll?
There are a lot of polls in the system.
One?
None
Which
favor her.
Which one?
Global Info Analytics.
Basa, you know, if that matter, say, I had the conversation with Musa Dangwa. In a democracy, I'm just saying that. No, the point is that you cannot go off of one poll because this is a subjective poll. And Musa Dangwa is biased. No. I have made that point to him.
Yeah, so, but
that he is biased.
I just don't want us to really
I'm just saying that best practice. Okay.
So we must have a lot of polls.
Yes,
but
so
for
that
now
you
we have
take
only
average.
one. Now we have only one.
So it's not sufficient
But
to
that's only
conclude
one we
anything.
have.
But it doesn't mean that
Dankwa
it's
Institute from conducting a poll.
That means that it's conclusive.
Very well.
So please, 1 minute is up.
Yeah, I said what stops the Dankwa Institute from conducting a poll so that we could really have a discussion about that.
Maybe they are doing so. But that's fine. So